Welcome Capricorn to your in-depth monthly forecast for November 2024 for the Ascendant, Sun or the Moon. Please see beneath this video to view your year 2025 Zodiac forecast. You can also order your personal forecast for next year now, get the rest of this year free, and also your life roadmap report and 30% off. Please see below for that too. On the screen now, I'm showing your event chart right at the start of the month, which holds some very important pointers, not least the position of the luminaries. As you go into this new month, the moon is applying to the sun. So we have a new moon in your 11th house. Now the sign of Scorpio can be intense, but it's also to do with transformations. The 11th house can be about your future direction, but it also can be about your network, your friendships, your highest hopes, and it can also be to do with strokes of fortune. So that new moon sets the scene right at the start of the month. But ironically, the two rulers of the sign of Scorpio, Mars, traditional, Pluto, modern, are in a tense opposition. Now, Pluto is going to be leaving your sign on the 19th for the last time in our lifetimes. So that's something to really look forward to. But that opposition to Mars is in your sector of relating. Pluto in your sign is very much about you as the individual. So it seems to be that with them feeding into the narrative of that new moon, it is going to be in some ways about feeling that you're heard, but particularly around your relationships, for you to plan that future that the new moon gives you the chance to work with. But the key is, Capricorn, is that your ruler, Saturn, is applying to Venus, the planet of relating, but that's in a hidden part of your chart, suggesting when it's joined by Mercury on the 2nd, that you could have some work to do in terms of deciding and deciphering who's really good for you. Because conversations can see some revelations, particularly in week 2, when Mercury squares up with Saturn. Now on the 3rd of the month, we have the exact opposition between Mars and Pluto. Essentially, when these two go face to face, we're talking about willpower. If that power is used wisely, it can be for the good. But sometimes what we can get with that particular opposition is Mars, which is rather tender and defensive in Cancer, can see us or see you feeling quite vulnerable potentially around a certain relationship, or on the other side of the celestial coin, perhaps feeling a bit irritable and a bit moody. And with Pluto there, the chances are you're going to want to assert what you want from the situation with a little more vigour. Now, your ruler Saturn is squaring up with Venus at the start of this month, suggesting that some hidden problems in any kind of relationship could be teased into the open. But in actual fact, right at the start of the month, Mercury, Mars and Neptune are in a grand water trine. Now, Mercury, like the new moon, is in the sign of Scorpio, but it's in an intense opposition with Uranus at the start of this month. Is there going to be a new player that seizes your attention? It's possible, but even if you are drawn towards them, as Mercury makes that transition into Sagittarius on the 2nd, you may want to keep it close to your chest as the month begins. So that's the scene as we sweep into this new month. You're being asked to think about your future, your connections, potentially a relationship, and there could be some information that's going to come into the open. Now on the 4th, Mars makes the move from Cancer, where it's been since the 6th of September, into the sign of Leo, which for you is house 8. If there is someone who's really capturing your imagination in a more intimate way, that can hot things up, particularly through to the 6th of December when Mars goes into its retrograde. But on the 7th, Mercury goes into its pre-retrograde shadow. And to be honest, right through to the 3rd of January next year, it's possible that something you need to work through of a particularly sensitive nature may seem to bog you down a little bit. You could feel more vulnerable about communications in general. The great news, however, is that on the 11th, Venus glides into your sign and escapes a square with Neptune that may have created even more disorientation. If you do need to make a key decision, perhaps to break free from a tie that isn't working, I feel Venus arriving in your sign is urging you to seize your power. But if you're thinking more about Venus's more decorative qualities, it's a great chance to think about giving yourself some kind of makeover. But the 15th sees your ruler go direct. For the last 5 months, it may have seemed that certain communications or relationships, potentially with a neighbour, potentially with a sibling, have just seemed that much more heavier going. You may have had a disinclination to connect with other people because of Saturn's retrograde. But also on the 15th, there is a full moon. A full moon in the most charismatic part of your chart, the 5th house, but it's very close to Uranus. And in the week following, the 3rd week of this month, the Sun and Uranus are in an opposition. And if you're not feeling it when it comes to that future, well, in terms of one particular involvement, whether it is a friendship, a group of people, or a more intimate relationship, or just in terms of your long-term life plan, you may be tempted to change things up. Now that may be counterintuitive to someone like you who likes to have a certain amount of stability and continuity, but Uranus has been pushing you since March 2019 to be more experimental. So you have a chance to do something more dramatic on the back of that particular full moon. But the 19th sees Pluto leave your sign. It just depends on your personal experience what since 2008 has represented for you. For some people it may have seemed old activities or old friendships, even an old job. An old way of being has gone and has been completely reborn, and that rebirth may have been very positive for you. Then again, for other people, Pluto going backwards and forwards across the Sun, your ascendant, or other personal planets such as Mercury, which can often be very close to the Sun, may have not always been easy. What Pluto encourages us to do is transform. So its arrival for the long term in your 2nd solar house is asking you to think about your values, your self-worth, but critically also money. The 2nd house can also be about things like food. So a good time to perhaps change your diet or get more invested in making stuff from scratch. But the 21st sees the Sun join up with Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, which for you is your 12th house. And that Sun position does link to Pluto. It's possible that you're being asked at this juncture in the month to quarry out value from your inner resources. See parts of your psychology, your resilience, for example, your determination, the way you can keep grinding away when life is quite hard, or there could be old talents and skills that you can repurpose in a fresh way that gives you some kind of financial upturn or just makes you feel better about you. But with Mercury going retrograde on the 26th through to the middle of December, there may be, unfortunately, some cross wires. We all know that Mercury can cause mischief, but in the 12th house, what it can do also is activate our imagination, but also our psychological imagination. So it's possible that a fearfulness can be aroused, and you may find yourself wanting to stay a little bit more detached from other people as this month draws to a close. With Mars also in the deep 8th house, if there has been a relationship issue that you're unsure about, and with that electric separating energy of the Sun opposing Uranus, maybe things have changed suddenly, and now you're dealing with the fallout. But that fallout can be a very valuable time for you if you embrace the opportunity. And that's the whole issue, really, to be honest, with the transitions of Pluto and also Mars. this month for you, they're moving the dial more towards your values, but also how you marshal your resources. And that may also be another area that requires some very deep thinking. But once the sun returns to your sign in a month's time, and we have the winter solstice, that will be your point of rebirth. And not just for the following 4 weeks, but for the following 13 weeks, right round to the spring equinox. So just go with the energy, go with the flow. There are some important things to deal with this month, but if you have been sticking with a situation just because that tends to be your instinct, you are being pushed in some ways to be more provocative this month. To check out your year 2025 deep dive video, please see the link beneath this video. But have a great month, take care, and goodbye.